to Mr. Biz Radio, biz talk for biz owners. If you're ready to stop faking the funk and take your business onward and upward, this show is for you. And now, here's Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth.
All right, welcome to another episode of Mr. Biz Radio with me, Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth. And I hope you're digging the new intro. Producer Alan worked hard on that. We got some new music and try to jazz it up a little bit. But everyone, as we journey through life, whether you might not even be an entrepreneur or business owner, but even just life in general, we all hit different types of crossroads, different challenges, different bumps in the road, etc. And that's what I want to talk about this week. So we have someone who has been there, done that, has lived through her share of difficult, challenging crossroads. And so we're going to talk to her this week. She's an author, and actually we're going to talk about this too. They're making her book into a movie. So want to hear about that. Super exciting stuff. Our guest this week, again, as I said, is an author, a mother of three, wife, entrepreneur, and she launched a healthcare company called GeoStar Chicago. She wrote a book called Untethered during her personal journey after saving her husband's life. She discovered that the fulfillment gained from diminishing the pain of others is like nothing else. So our guest this week is none other than Mrs. Shelly Sood. Shelly, welcome to Mr. Biz Radio.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so super excited to talk about this because, again, this is something that will resonate with everybody. I mean, clearly as an entrepreneur, we face challenges, the ups and downs and inevitable bumps on the road that we all face as an entrepreneur, business owner. But really, this applies to everyone, right? Even if you're not a business owner in your corporate career or whatever type of career you might have, we all face those key crossroads. And so I want to make sure we dive into that because, again, I think it's going to be really powerful for people. Before we get into all that, though, why don't you tell us about your entrepreneurial journey, Shelly?
Sure. So as you indicated, I'm an entrepreneur and I formed the company GeoStar Chicago. That was about 4 years ago. And, that was really after the epiphany I had. My husband was suffering from bipolar disorder for nearly 2 decades, undiagnosed. So, we went through our share of personal problems. He filed for divorce. We had a very contentious divorce. I was scared and terrified that something was happening to my children. I was fearful that he would do something that he would later regret. And, sure enough, after he came down from his manic phase and went into his depressive phase, he finally sought help. So at that point, I really helped save his life. And, that was really, like I said earlier, the most fulfilling thing I had ever done in my entire life. And, it was really against all odds because when you have somebody that's suffering like that and they're just determined to put every roadblock in your face to prevent you from helping them, you're against all odds. So my life, 6 or 7 years ago is completely different at this point. And because of what happened to me, because of the travesty and all that, because I helped my husband, I was able to launch this company and really wanted to help others at that point.
Yeah. So, I mean, and if this is too personal, just tell me, but I'm curious because I dealt with a little bit of this, a friend of the family, where during his bipolar situation, were there any substances involved? Did he become any addiction or anything like that on top of the bipolar?
Yeah, it was mostly cigarettes and smoking. Yeah.
Okay.
But, there was a lot of alcohol consumption and cigarette smoking and things like that. So that was that. Interestingly enough, though, he kicked that addiction immediately. That was literally overnight. And I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's super impressive. I mean, obviously, he must have recognized at that point that those things were causing him to spiral downward or causing problems in his life. And so he's, obviously made a change. And that had to be super rewarding for you to see, like, okay, he recognized it. Because I think, from everything I hear and these stories you always hear, one of the most frustrating things is being, I don't want to say a victim, I guess you kind of are a victim of being in someone's life like that, is when they don't recognize it and you're trying to help them, but they don't recognize it enough to help themselves. That had to be a really positive sign that he's finally getting it. He realizes this is a problem.
Exactly. Yeah. And I had the lawyers against me. I had clinicians who didn't believe me. And so I was just losing it myself through this whole process. So,
yeah, I mean, Yeah, again, talk about, critical crossroads. I mean, you're facing a whole slew of them, seemingly one on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other. Like you said, once not only the situation with your husband, but then the tag on effects of that of divorce and facing that and with your children. And again, I'm sure it's super frustrating and had to be challenging. How did you best protect your kids from that? I mean, I'm sure you couldn't 100%, but I'm sure that was a super worry for you and also a challenge.
Yes, absolutely. But the thing is, the more I tried to control the situation, the more it would backfire. So I really just did not have that greater understanding that things were going to evolve as they were going to evolve, and have an ounce of trust. I had lost all faith and trust in humanity because I'm sitting here, this devoted wife for 20 or 15 years, and my husband suddenly pulls the rug from underneath me and files for divorce. And, I'm not, managing my career all that much. I've taken a back seat, raising kids. I mean, it's a very common, typical story, minus the mental illness component. So, that's one of the things that, I want to be able to tell my story, because I think it's going to really resonate with people of how there really is hope in this world to make those changes. And when I say changes, I mean, those personal, insightful changes to your core being.
So how did that lead, going from that situation and overcoming that and seeing the fulfillment that you felt from that? How did that lead to GeoStar Chicago?
So after my husband and I got back together, I helped him and nursed him kind of back to health together. Of course, he had a huge role in it and was determined to get help as well. And after that had evolved, we had decided, okay, let's give the marriage a shot, because I had kind of given up on the marriage at that point. And then I just had that epiphany that I need to do something for myself. I need to be able to have this feeling and repeat the feeling of being able to help other people in this world, like I did my husband. And so the paths crossed, and the universe was, by my side. And I met the owners, the co-founders and founder of GeoStar, Devin Patel and Dr. Anand Shrivastava, who have been in this research realm, Dr. Anand Shrivastava, for over a quarter of a century. And so I was really blessed to cross paths with such insightful, knowledgeable humanitarians.
It's interesting how the universe works, right? How those things happen. It's interesting. I hear this all the time, and I see these memes on social media and everything, but it says, when you're having a down day, we all have down days now and again. You have a crappy day and you're just really feeling unmotivated, maybe even depressed, whatever it might be. They said that, I always see this, one of the best ways to get out of it is to show gratitude towards someone else, even a stranger on the street, just smiling at them, nodding at them, giving them some sort of affirmation, even though it's difficult in that time to do that. And I've tried it, and literally I remember leaving a meeting. I was super down, bummed out, and it popped in my head. And so I'm like, let me try this. And I'm walking past someone that I don't know on the street, never seen them before. I nodded and waved. And I said, that's a great hat you got. And the smile on their face, all of a sudden you're like, wow, and it's very small microcosm of what you dealt with. But, I sort of understand, that sort of mentality and how that makes you feel.
Yeah, it's absolutely. It's so meaningful. And you hit the nail on the head. Gratitude is huge. We should all look back at our lives 5, 7, 10 years ago and see where we are today. I think we give ourselves a hard time, and we are our own worst enemies a lot of times.
Yeah. All right, we're going to hit a break. After the break, we're going to talk about Shelly's book, Untethered, and the movie.
If you would like to reach hundreds of thousands of business owners every week, Mr. Biz Radio can help. Our show airs globally 7 days a week for more than 25 hours across several internet radio stations, plus 20 plus podcast platforms. Also, video exposure on the new exclusive Mr. Biz Network streaming channel, which gets blasted to 100 plus streaming platforms, and the Mr. Biz YouTube channel, and our 350,000 social media followers multiple times every week. Join Mr. Biz Nation as an advertiser by emailing us at info@MrBizSolutions.com.
Are you ready to automate your business? Automation is the key to scaling a business and building wealth. It's also one of the most difficult things for a small business owner to do on their own. If you're looking for help with automation, Pulse Technology CRM can help. We have an exclusive offer for Mr. Biz Nation. We will build everything for free, even if it's a sophisticated funnel. Visit thepulsespot.com/Mr. Biz for this exclusive offer.
Got a question for Mr. Biz you want answered on air? Email it to info@MrBizSolutions.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. As we do at the top of this second segment of every show, it's time for Mr. Biz tip of the week. And this week's tip, a financial one, surprise, right? One of the quickest ways to financial problems is holding on to unprofitable customers. I talk about this all the time. I call it the silent business killer. You have customers that or clients that are at best break even, but oftentimes you're losing money. I call it the silent business killer because, of course, most of the time you don't realize it, because why would you purposely have that? But the whole point of the tip is you have to find them. You have to look for the silent business killer. You have to find them and you have to eliminate them. Doesn't mean getting rid of the customer necessarily. That means you need to change the pricing, you need to change the offering, et cetera. It might mean, though, that whatever you're trying to offer them, you can't offer it an effective price that is the market's willing to bear. And in that case, you may have to drop the service or drop the customer or whatever it might be. But make sure you look for those things, because almost every business I've ever worked with has had some version of the silent business killer. So do not allow that to be you. All right. That's the Mr. Biz tip of the week. All right. So Shelly, I should mention, you can go to geostarchicago.com to find out more. Geostar, and that's GIO star chicago.com. Follow her on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. But so Shelly, so let's move from you start GeoStar, you write the book Untethered. So how did what decision process to happen that you're like, man, I need to write a book about this?
So initially, it really wasn't even a book. It was just a bunch of notes. And my best friend had advised me during the divorce, document everything in terms of dates, everything that's happened for the lawyers. So it started out as kind of a running journal of this is the date, this is what happened kind of routine. Then after my husband and I got back together and we were healing, I used my writing as a healing mechanism for my own self and for my own trauma that I had endured through this whole process. You know, I probably had some level of PTSD at some point. And so it just became so cathartic to write. And slowly I would just stay up till 2:00 in the morning and write and pour my heart on this paper. And it didn't matter, you know, I didn't overthink the spelling, the grammar, the flow or anything of the sort, just getting it out there on paper. And so for several years then after that, I would start to edit, make modifications. Then my husband got involved and started writing his voice. And so now it's just evolved into this beautiful story.
Okay, so now we go from the book. How did this whole movie thing come about? This is super exciting. Like, seriously, I'm sure everyone's like, oh my gosh, how did this happen?
That was just the universe again. You know, the universe, it was just put in my path. I crossed paths with the right people at the right time who were looking for this kind of story. And I built relationships with producers. And so, you know, now we're working on, you know, development of the script per se.
That's awesome. That's super exciting. I know it's a long process to go through that, but at the end, I'm sure it will be absolutely worth it. It'll be something that will make you even more proud of having come through the whole situation with the book, and then being able to have it, you know, see it as a movie will be even more rewarding, I'm sure.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit, shift gears on some of the things that you do with GeoStar Chicago. So tell us a little bit about what that looks like, what you do, how you help folks, et cetera.
So GeoStar Chicago is a stem cell therapy clinic. We're located in the suburbs of Chicago in Glenview, Illinois. You know, and we're focused really on degenerative conditions. So patients that are suffering from arthritis, some autoimmune conditions, things like that, lung disease. And we really help the patients using their own stem cells. You know, so that's just been an amazing journey. It's been a life-changing journey in terms of being able to be an entrepreneur, learn on the job. I literally probably got an MBA in the first 2 years of running a company without actually having an MBA. I'm sure you know what that's like. And so just the whole ins and outs of the business, learning from my own mistakes and my own failures, but really at this point, you know, thriving in the business as well. So.
And so I'm guessing getting into stem cells, I mean, that's not like just therapy, not to down, I'm not saying therapy is just therapy, but that's, that's much more medical. I don't know how to say it. Mrs. Biz is a nurse and she'd be probably embarrassed for me to say it that way. But so what's some of your so you obviously have a background in some of that, right?
Mm-hmm. No, I don't. I mean, I had a couple of years.
Okay.
I had a couple of years in the field with, developing centers in India through other companies and things like that. So I was playing more of a marketing type of role. I wasn't quite an entrepreneur. And so I was really just getting my feet wet in the industry. But, I very much believe in self-taught. I always believe in personal growth and continuous learning. Even to this day, I'm learning. I have, coaches for my book or coaches for speaking engagements. So when I was in that mode, I was learning and absorbing everything like a sponge and surrounding myself with professionals that I could pick their brains and understand the business more and more and understand stem cell science on a whole.
So have you faced, I would guess that some of the uphill battle you face is, I'm sure, because I've seen a lot of the research myself, the amazing impacts that stem cell can have. But do you still face one of the biggest things is the actual education, letting people know? Because I'm sure there are people, especially maybe a little bit of an older generation, they're like, that sounds like trickery, like some kind of, witch doctor stuff. I don't know about this. Is that one of the challenges you guys have faced with GeoStar Chicago?
It is, because traditional medicine, obviously we need traditional medicine and it offers so many types of different treatments or whatnot. But the problem is these chronic conditions do not really have treatments per se. They have more of a Band-Aid, and when those medications are taken, a lot of times, yes, we need the medications at times, but other times they cause other side effects and other problems. And so people don't know where to go. So my mindset is, okay, well, you've tried this outlet. Did it work for you? I always ask the patient that question. Did it work for you? Because if it did, wonderful. You don't need to come to us. That's great. That's the purpose. But if it didn't, and you're looking for alternatives, just look within yourself and think about, okay, there's no real harm to trying this. You know what I mean? It's not going to do any harm to your body. The only thing is it's going to help you. It's going to bring down that total inflammation. And, my husband was actually one of the patients that saw the results really in the early days. So he was one of those success stories that, had a herniated disc and the doctor said that he absolutely needed surgery. His MRIs were so bad. I mean, he was lying in bed. He was miserable. And we did the stem cell therapy on him and boom, he was good to go. He was getting out of bed and moving and everything.
Well, the thing I love about it, so I researched, this was a long time ago, gosh, probably, I don't know, maybe 15 or so years ago from an athletic perspective. So I had an injury. I used to compete and I had an injury and I started to do it because I'm seeing a lot of these professional athletes that were leaving the United States and going to Germany to get stem cell therapy, et cetera. And I'm like, well, if these guys are doing it, there must be something there. So I did some research on my own way back then and saw some of those things. And I never did pull the trigger on it because even back then it was going to be so darn expensive for me to, fly to Germany and be over there for an extended period of time, et cetera. It just didn't work out. But I saw some of the massive benefits you can get from it. So again, this week we're talking with, this is Shelly Sood. You can find out more at geostarchicago.com. Check out her book, Untethered. You can find that everywhere you find books, as you wouldn't imagine. You can follow her on Instagram, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and on Facebook. You're going to come back after the break, and this is what I talked about at the outset. We're going to talk about how to recognize those key crossroads in your life's journey. And we're trying to reach a certain destination. You have certain goals. How do we recognize those to make sure that we get past them?
How would you like to have direct access to Mr. Biz to help you run your business more profitably and more efficiently? At MrBizSolutions.com, you get live access to not only Mr. Biz, but also several of his hand-picked and trusted business experts, each with 20 plus years of experience to help you optimally manage and grow your business. That's just the start of where Mr. Biz Solutions begins. Learn more at MrBizSolutions.com. That's MrBizSolutions.com.
Business owners have a continually growing to-do list with little time for revenue-producing activities. With Check Off Your List and their experienced team of virtual assistants, you can focus on growing your business. Visit checkoffyourlist.com to learn how Check Off Your List's skilled team can handle your day-to-day tasks like social media, bookkeeping, calendar maintenance, and much more. Contact Check Off Your List at checkoffyourlist.com or call 888-262-1249 to see how their virtual assistants can help you live to work rather than work to live.
Check out all three of Mr. Biz's best-selling books at MrBizBooks.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. And this is the meat, right? We're going to get to the meat here, and we're going to learn a lot from Shelly's experiences that she's had, as we've talked about during the first two segments. A lot of things in her personal life, obviously, and as an entrepreneur, as she mentioned, becoming an MBA, a School of Hard Knocks MBA graduate, learning how to run a business, et cetera, and starting a new business in a new town, et cetera, et cetera. So she has faced this. She's been there, done that on many different fronts. Again, personal life, professional, all these different angles. So she's going to be able to help us a ton. So Shelly, walk us through that a little bit. How do we recognize some of these key crossroads when they come? Because sometimes when life's piling up on you, or so it seems, everything seems like a critical, crossroad. Like, is this trying to tell me to go here, or should I do this? Or is this like not that big a deal? How do we recognize some of those things?
So if people step back and really started to embrace reaching higher levels of consciousness, then they would really be able to evolve and start to see the crossroads in their life with complete clarity. Because I think what happens in this day and age, we're in this physical world, we have all this noise around us, we have opinions of others, we are influenced by the media, we are influenced by what others think, and we are influenced by that loud noise in our head that shows doubt. And it constantly happens to us. And so the way that I have gotten past that, when I first got back together with my husband, I played the victim, and I felt like, how could this happen to me? When I was going through it, actually, not when I got back together. And so my evolution occurred at that point when I realized I was not going to be the victim anymore. I was going to really start to embrace, that there was a reason that this happened to me. And my evolution had to really take place as a result. So I relinquished all control over the situation, because that was one of my other things. I was kind of a control freak, frankly. So, it really takes this special person to look within themselves and see that. And so I used higher levels of consciousness through, transcendental meditation, through mindfulness, to really be able to understand that there's more out there in the universe, that we were able to gain clarity in what really our sole purpose is in this world. And I think my journey was to find my soul purpose and to untether my own life, as well as my husband to untether his through his own personal journey. And so that's kind of where I got the title of the book, Untethered. And so that's how I evolved over time, through, the creative visualization, through transcendental practices, and through meditation, which I practice every single day.
It's very interesting. And I haven't gotten into meditation yet. And it's funny that you're, as you a guest on the show, bringing this up and how transformational it was for you, because talk about, crossroads in the universe. I'm not kidding you, Shelly. In the last 2 weeks, you're probably the 6th or 7th person who's mentioned meditation to me. So really? maybe this is a sign for me as well. Like,
sign, right.
I need to take a step back and dive into this a little bit. What are some things that you have found that when you're going through a difficult situation and you can't get out of your own way? Your mind, as you mentioned, the loud voice in your head is really just, you get this paradigm and you're just looking for more negativity to feed that paradigm. Like, I'm in a bad mood and everyone stinks. And so I'm looking for things that make me, that are gonna support my mindset. How do you snap yourself out of that? I mean, I know, I'll be honest, occasionally that happens to me, and I'll catch myself and I'll be like, and I'm talking to myself, of course, like, stop, stop looking. If you look for crap, you're going to find crap. If you look for good, you're going to find good.
Yeah. And I don't think people really fundamentally understand that. That is very, very true. That is one point. And the only way I'm really able to do that, to tell you the truth, because there's so much negativity around us. The media breeds, they love the negativity. People thrive on listening to negativity in the news and everything. It's a sad situation. And so I get in my little cocoon again with meditation and mindfulness, and I am able to really carve my path and truly manifest what I'm looking for in this world and my purpose through meditation. But also, when you reach those crossroads, right, we have to have some movement as well. We can't just sit back and say the universe is going to give us X, Y, Z, because the world just doesn't work that way. And so we're faced with these crossroads and we're faced with these decisions. And it's like, well, which way do I go, kind of thing. And so at that point, really the most important thing when somebody is meditating is to tap into the intuition. And that intuitive mind and that level of meditation can really be tapped into. And that is where you're able to get clarity and make the decisions that you need to make. Because people, a lot of times, they don't have confidence in their decision-making ability.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I run into it with clients all the time, as a fractional CFO and working with business owners. And what I found, Shelly, is it's one of two things usually. There's not much gray. Either they have unbridled confidence, sometimes maybe too much, let's just say, or they just second guess and they're very wishy-washy. And, I tell them, I have one particular client. One of the things I say to them all the time is stop straddling the fence. Take action. It might not be the right action, but you got to take action to determine if it's the right way or not. And I heard that, when you first started to mention this, you said, you have to take action. You can't just sit back and meditate and say, oh, everything's going to work itself out. You have to take some action, even if it's imperfect action.
Yep, exactly. Because that fear, breeds basically inaction. And we're all scared. We're all living in this world where we're so fearful. Well, what is really going to happen? So you got to assess, okay, if I take this path, what is the worst case scenario? If I take this path, what is the worst case scenario? Can I live with the worst case scenario for plan A and the worst case scenario for plan B? If the answer is yes, then go for it.
Yeah, an interesting thing I heard, and it sounds so simple. I heard David Meltzer mention this. He said, when you're having those times when, you just have that negative paradigm in your head and you just continue to fuel it. And, oh, that guy pulled out in front of me. And, oh my gosh, it's raining. And, you just start to pile on your own self. He said, stop and literally consciously out loud, say the word cancel 3 times. Cancel, cancel, cancel. And I heard him say that and I'm like, okay, that's like the cheesiest of all cheese things I've ever heard. Like, well, unbeknownst to me, I don't know, 10 days later, I'm having one of those days. And for whatever reason, that popped back in my head. And I'm like, I tried it. And while it didn't 100% relieve the situation, it helped. And I'm like, whoa, that, again, just that. And it's just what you said, really, in a more simplistic way, is taking a step back, having a higher level of conscious, stepping out of that negative zone for enough time to say the word cancel 3 times, just as enough of a pattern interrupt in your brain to like, okay, stop looking for all the negativity,
Yep, exactly. And that's what I would have with my husband when he was manic. Everything was negative, everything that was coming out of his mouth. And so it's so funny you brought up the word cancel, because my word was skip. So I would type text messages, skip, skip, skip. It would drive him totally nuts, but it worked because it kept me in my space and protected me.
Yeah. Well, it's been powerful. I know I've used it and I've continued to use it. And sometimes, I might have to say, stop and say cancel, cancel, cancel like 3 or 4 times. But nonetheless, hey, whatever works, right? Sometimes. Again, this week, we've been talking with Mrs. Shelly Sood. You can find out more at geostarchicago.com. That's GIO Star Chicago, GIO-Star-Chicago.com. Follow her on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Shelly, thank you so much for coming on the show. Absolutely fantastic content. Really loved having you on.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks for watching as always. Thanks for listening. And don't forget, as always, cash flow is king.
To become part of Mr. Biz Nation, follow him on all social media platforms or never miss a show by going to MrBizRadio.com. If you prefer free video content, visit the Mr. Biz YouTube channel or check out his streaming channel, which is available on 100 plus streaming platforms at MrBizNetwork.com.